offers prayers to Prabhupada. Namo Om Vishnu Badhaya Krishna Bhashtaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Samti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Puchaline Nivasesha Sunyavari Pashtatara Satarine. Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Sari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. All right, so I presume like yesterday you all have your Bhagavad Gita there. So if anyone needs me to share the Bhagavad Gita, you can let me know on the screen. Otherwise, we'll just go without that. And yeah, interesting. We just covered 2 verses yesterday, or 3 verses. That's good. There's a lot there. There's a lot to discuss. So let's go then to text 15. Let's have a reader. Anyone like to read text 15? You can go ahead.
Okay. Yam hina vyahayanti ete purusham purusha sarva sam dukkha sukham dhiram sa mritva vaya kalpate. O best among men, Arjuna, the person who is not disturbed by happiness and distress and is steady in both is certainly eligible for liberation. Purport. Anyone who is steady in his determination for the advanced stage of spiritual realization and can equally tolerate the onslaughts of distress and happiness is certainly a person eligible for liberation. In the Varnashrama institution, the 4th stage of life, namely the renounced order, sannyasa, is a painstaking situation. But one who is serious about making his life perfect surely adapts the sannyasa order of life in spite of all difficulties. The difficulties usually arise from having to serve family relationships, to give up the connection of wife and children. But if anyone is able to tolerate such difficulties, surely his path to spiritual realization is complete. Similarly, in Arjuna's discharge of duties as a Kshatriya, he is advised to persevere, even if it is difficult to fight with his family members or similarly beloved persons. Lord Chaitanya took sannyasa at the age of 24, and his dependents, young wife as well as old mother, had no one else to look after them. Yet, for a higher cause, he took sannyasa and was steady in the discharge of higher duties. That is the way of achieving liberation from material bondage.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments on this?
I like that sentence. The difficulties usually arise from having to sever family relation.
Sever. Yeah.
Sever family relation. To give up connection with wife. I mean, that's for sannyasis, but I'm just saying, even for people like us, don't want to deal with the family.
Yeah.
You don't deal with it, but
that's why I mean the underlying principle here is duty. By being attentive and being, responsible and dutiful, then you're automatically going to learn to be tolerant. Because the choice you have, if things get difficult, is to give up your duty. And that's generally the practice of people in the modern world, you could say, as opposed to the past. If things get difficult or things get difficult, then the tendency is just to neglect one's duty. Now, of course, there is situations where one's duty would be to give up. Like I was just reading, for instance, I was reading just recently in the Srimad Bhagavatam that if, for instance, if a husband is fallen fallen, then it's a duty of the wife to live separately from the husband. Of course, this should be taken in consideration of the specific circumstances. But I'm just highlighting that generally one's going to stick to one's duties, but there may be circumstances where one has to adjust one's specific duty. You see? So it can be, yeah, but the overall principle is we should stick to our duties, even if it's difficult. And you bring up, of course, a family situation. Yeah, it can be quite difficult to one degree or another. But actually, or one's occupation, it may be difficult. But this is how Krishna is advising Arjuna. Now he has he's been given the duty of killing his family members, killing persons he has great affection for and adoration, persons who he sees as his worshipful gurus, grandfather Bhishma, etc. So hopefully we won't have to face something like that. So anyway, any further questions on that?
Yeah, I was going to ask you something. Okay.
Mm.
Say when, for me, I'm okay, I live on my own. But those who are living in a family and it's difficult situation, so one has to do their duty though, like bringing kids up or in the husband.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. So on the other hand, I was thinking that if you want a peaceful life, so you're going to live on your own. But doesn't it say that one has to do one's duty, not do somebody else's duty? So it, don't just run away from your duties. That's not going to help you. Is that right?
Yeah, well, that's right. That particular verse you're referring to in Bhagavad Gita is like the verse Manmana Mavat Bhakto. It's actually mentioned twice in Bhagavad Gita.
Mm-hmm.
That more or less exactly the same verse is mentioned twice. But yeah, so that's an example that we you're bringing out the point that one has to we shouldn't whimsically give up our duties. It has to be quite that's why we should take advice from devotees who are advanced, devotees who have wisdom, devotees who are, what could I say, substantial devotees. Yeah, we should take advice from them of how to act or what to do and how to act, and we should want to follow their instructions. Yeah, and it's very it's going to be very circumstantial. Everyone's specific situation is different from someone else's, but the overall principle of not neglecting one's duty is always recommended. Now, in extreme cases, one may be advised to not uphold one's specific duties, say in a family situation, but that will be an extreme case. Yeah, and again, this is a point that comes up in the Mahabharata and comes up a lot here in Bhagavad Gita. It's one's duty. Yeah. And I don't know if that answered the question exactly, but just a further comment on it.
Yeah, it's good for like preaching as well when you're trying to explain things to other devotees. And also, Krishna consciousness is internal, so it doesn't matter even if you are in a difficult situation. You have to keep your consciousness internally Krishna conscious.
Yeah.
Could share with, like externally, you could be sitting with all your families and eating a samosa, this, that, whatever. But internally, Krishna, I do not want things like this ever again. But at that moment, you just have to do it.
Yeah, and that's what this verse is about. Mm-hmm. That person is eligible for liberation. The person is not disturbed. So being not disturbed is something we have to learn to do by And we will learn to do that by being in a disturbing situation. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Even
that disturbing situation generally is going to be coming by doing our duty. So then, as you're correctly saying, that in that situation, I mean, that's why our specific practice of sadhana is very important. Our daily hearing of Bhagavatam, our daily chanting of Krishna's holy name, attending classes, etc. It will help us to follow this verse. All right.
also, I was thinking one more thing was like, even in Krishna consciousness, even being in association of devotees, sometimes you are in an association when they also not talking what you want to hear or talking different things. And you kind of think, oh, Krishna, I know this is association of devotees, but this is not what I want to do. Or they're going in a different way and you think, okay, I follow for now, but I really don't want to be in this kind of situations. So even there we can have changes that you want to make in your life, you know?
Yeah, yeah. So you kind of adjust the sails on your boat.
Yes.
Adjust the sails in your boat to so the boat plies in a certain direction, and it's something which we have to do on a daily basis.
Mm-hmm.
The situations always change, so always kind of adjusting our relationships, perhaps with specific devotees or specific members of the family, adjusting, then coming across other situations where we have to adjust. So, but the most important thing is we should do what's going to maintain our Krishna consciousness, and that's all. And Krishna will give us help to do that, especially if we have a constant, within our heart, we have a constant resolve to serve Krishna with a love and devotion, then Krishna is going to give us guidance of how to deal with these situations and how to maintain our Krishna consciousness. Yeah, I'm quoting the verse. Anyone can say what verse we're referring to? Well-known verse from the 10th chapter. By serving Krishna with love. Anyone could finish this verse?
Love and devotion.
For those who constantly devotees serving me with love.
And devotion.
I accordingly or something.
Something, yeah.
Sorry.
Is it that I give them what they lack? Or?
Intelligence, I'll give
Yeah,
them.
that's it. Yeah, that's that. In what they lack is another verse. That's Anantashchinta Yodhamam. But the verse we're thinking of is Te Samsatata Yukdanam Pajatam Pati Dani Budiyogam Dam Yena Mama Puyanti. To those who serve me, who constantly serve me with love, I give them the understanding by which they can come to me. Yeah.
Right, yes.
We're expanding a lot on this point, but just coming, it may be that we have to tolerate a situation for 5, 6, 7 years or more. It may be a bit of a situation in that we have to learn to be Krishna conscious, and it may be a few years, but Krishna always protects his devotee. We should have firm faith in Krishna's protection.
One more question, sorry.
Yes.
When we need to practice that everything we want to do in Krishna consciousness, or we're doing, is for the pleasure of Radha and Krishna. So how do we try and maintain that thought all the time? Not for ticking my boxes, it's for them.
How to do that all the time?
Yeah, try and keep that consciousness all the time. This is for Radha and Krishna's pleasure, not my pleasure.
Well, it's exactly as you're saying. It is a particular meditation that you may choose to concentrate on, particular internal resolve that you want to develop. Okay, it's nice that I want to always be mindful that everything I'm doing is for the pleasure of Radha and Krishna. So then that will become an internal dialogue. You understand? It's like some these type of meditations, they may not come spontaneously to us. For someone who's advanced, they don't have to convince themselves that everything they're doing is for Radha and Krishna. That's where their heart goes, and that's where their mind is. Yeah, that's called spontaneous devotional service. But if generally we may not be on that level, so it's a meditation just in the same as a meditation that we are not the body, as we're discussing yesterday. So we have to cultivate that meditation. So it's a matter of cultivation, where we I want to, just like the residents of Vrindavan, everything they do is for the pleasure of Radha and Krishna. But then it also means you have to, if you want to live by that resolve, then you may have to make some adjustments, because there may be things that you're doing. Okay, if you're, again, sorry to bring up, but if you're watching Emmerdale Farm, you can't say this is for Radha Krishna. So you have to, no. Or if you're spending time, watching something what we may call non-Krishna conscious or mundane, then it'd be hypocrisy to say this is for the pleasure of Radha and Krishna. So that means your lifestyle has to, for it to be not hypocrisy, you have to actually, you have to have a look at what you're doing throughout the day. If you're doing materialistic things, then you cannot possibly say, oh, this is for Radha and Krishna. Well, one, they're not going to accept it, and you cannot fool Krishna. He's in our hearts. So there's a couple of ideas on that. Anyone else, if there any ideas on this? But generally, yeah. So you want to cultivate that.
But you can get onto that kind of thoughts, and then Krishna will help you to give. I mean, luckily I don't watch things like Emmerdale Farm or whatever, but anyway, like you have to. Yeah,
we have to be reading. We have to be hearing and chanting.
Yeah.
So?
Yeah, we have to get on the path of thinking, at least, and then Krishna will help.
Yeah, you have to read about and be inspired about persons who are acting solely for the pleasure of, say, Radha and Krishna. So that's Srimad Bhagavatam. Yeah, those are pure-hearted souls, and they're acting directly under instructions from the spiritual master and as a means of pleasing Krishna, and their whole life is dedicated to that purpose. Srimad Bhagavatam is full of that. Marj Ambarish, Shavai Mana Krishna Pada Vindayo. Yeah. All right.
Yep. Thank you.
Should we edge on another verse? Any comments on that from anyone out there? There's not so many with us today. But anyone has any comments and other questions, please raise your hand or unmute. Otherwise, we shall go to text 16. Okay, this is talking about Sankhya now, quite detailed analysis. It's going to be explained about the soul and the body. Okay, let's have someone read chapter 2, text 16.
Shall I read, Prabhu? Hare Krishna?
Yes, you shall read. You can read. Go ahead.
Okay. Text 16. Nastu vidyate bhavo, nabho vidyate sata, ubhar api drishto nashta, tav anashyo tatha drishibi. Those who are seers of the truth have concluded that of the non-existent, the material body, there is no endurance, and of the eternal, the soul, there is no change. This they have concluded by studying the nature of both. There is no endurance of the changing body, that the body is changing every moment by the actions and reactions of the different cells is admitted by modern medical science, and thus growth and old age are taking place in the body. But the spirit soul exists permanently, remaining the same despite all changes of the body and the mind. That is the difference between matter and spirit. By nature, the body is ever changing and the soul is eternal. This conclusion is established by all classes of seers of the truth, both impersonalist and personalist. In the Vishnu Purana 2.12.38, it is stated that Vishnu and his abodes all have self-illuminated spiritual existence. Jayamurti Vinur Bhuvani Vishnu. The words existent and non-existent refer only to spirit and matter. That is the version of all seers of truth. This is the beginning of the instruction by the Lord to the living entities who are bewildered by the influence of ignorance. Removal of ignorance involves the re-establishment of the eternal relationship between the worshipper and the worshipable, worshipable, can't say the word, worshipable, and the consequent understanding of the difference between the part and parcel living entities and the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One can understand the nature of the Supreme by thorough study of oneself, the difference between oneself and the Supreme being understood as the relationship between the part and the whole. In the Vedanta Sutra, as well as in the Srimad Bhagavatam, the Supreme has been accepted as the origin of all emanations. Such emanations are experienced by superior and inferior natural sequences. The living entities belong to the spirit nature, as it will be revealed in the 7th chapter. Although there's no difference between the energy and the energetic is accepted as the supreme, and energy or nature is accepted as the subordinate. The living entities, therefore, are always subordinate to the Supreme Lord, as in the cause of the master and the servant, or the teacher and the taught. Such clear knowledge is impossible to understand under the spell of ignorance, and to drive away such ignorance, the Lord teaches the Bhagavad Gita for the enlightenment of all living entities for all time. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Thank you. Very nice reading. So again, Krishna is kind of chastising Arjuna. It seems like Arjuna is misunderstood and is identifying the self as the body. Or at least he's identifying the body of Grandfather Bhishma, for example, as being this, as being eternal. But anyway, so here Krishna is clarifying again. Yeah. And again, interesting is Krishna is referring to authority. Yeah, you would say that, does he have to refer to authority? Well, he doesn't in one sense, because he is the ultimate authority. But here he's referring to the authority. Yeah. The seers of the truth. Yeah. So that's how to have a philosophical discussion in terms of spiritual conclusions. There is no room for speculation. The Veda is there, so then you refer to Veda. And Veda states this, yeah. Those who actually seen the truth, that the material body, there's no endurance. Well, it endures for some time, but not for long. The soul is no change. So this has been concluded. It's not something whimsical. It's through meditation and study. Now, I just wanted to pull out one thing here, which in the purple, can anyone perhaps explain this more? This, in the second paragraph, there's a sentence, one can understand the nature of the Supreme by thorough study of oneself. The difference between oneself and the Supreme being understood as a relationship between the part and the whole. So how can we understand, what does Prabhupada mean here? We study oneself, we can understand the Supreme.
Well, it's Hare Krishna.
Yeah, please.
We are people, we are persons. So the source must be a person. We have form, he must have form, and so on and so forth. That's how I understand it.
Yeah, simply put, yeah, that in essence is what is being said here. Yeah, we understand, and in other words, we understand that we are the observer of a changing body. Yeah, we observe our body go through changes, because it grows. Yeah. So as Mother Guy is saying, in the same way, we understand the Supreme to be the eternal witness. Yeah. So we are the witness of the body. Yeah. We are the soul. So in other words, we can get some sense of eternality by analyzing this fact that we are, I can explain that we are observing the phenomena of the temporary nature of the material world. The person who is observing is not of the same nature. They are transcendent. So you follow? So we are transcendent. But it takes meditation, and it takes like a meditation and the practice of spiritual life to actually be able to catch it. The fact, that we are the witness, we are the observer. I think I have mentioned this before. It's a point I often like to make, that we often we observe our body going through different changes. Perhaps we observe our body, or for instance, as being sick. Like a couple of weeks ago, I got very sick, and I couldn't do much about it. I was on the road, just had to sitting in the car completely sick, and I got to a destination. The first thing I did was just collapsed on the bed. So I was kind of then I was observing my body, to much to my distress. So I was sick. So, but then we have, and then we also, that's a gross body, but also we observe the state of our subtle body. When you conclude that I am miserable now, or we conclude I am happy, that's the transcendent soul, who is not subject to happiness and distress of the world, is making a comment upon your subtle body of mind and intelligence. You follow? When you conclude, now I'm angry, now I'm envious, or now I'm lusty, or whatever. That's you're making comments. So you're actually transcendent. But again, it takes a regulated life. It takes a spiritual life to actually be able to grasp it. So in that sense, like us is like Krishna. Yeah. We are not subject to time. So therefore, you understand? So we can have through this meditation, we can enter into a meditation of eternality, where we're not actually aging, and we can have some perception of that. It's only our body. So if we are eternal, then it doesn't take much to understand the Supreme Eternal, Krishna, who's not subject to time. But then it does mention here but we should not conclude that we are of the same nature. We are like Krishna. No. Yeah, we are inferior and he is superior. Yeah. He is the fire. We are the parts of the fire. Yeah. Difference in quality and quantity.
Yeah, like the aging process, isn't it? That we feel the same, but the body is letting us down. What we did before easily now is a struggle. So even though inside we feel the same, but we can't do it physically because the body is letting us down. So is that also realizing that this body is deteriorating?
Yeah, and it's interesting you bring that up, because even persons who are not devotees, like I've had that many times. I've stopped old people on the street who have a conversation, and you asked him, "Do you feel young at heart?" And they say, "Oh yeah, I feel young at heart." They really get into it. Yeah, I feel young at heart. I do. Well, yeah. So that can be understood by anyone really, with a little contemplation. or young at heart. I think there's a song, isn't there? I mean, I won't start singing it. Young at heart. Yeah, and that's a deep principle actually, because we are soul. So again, this is being confirmed by Krishna now in his teachings to Arjuna. Krishna is clarifying the whole concept of the soul and the body, you know. Yeah. Anything else we want to bring out from this purport?
Yeah, you said when we're feeling happy, sad, angry, whatever, is
Yeah.
it do with your senses? Not
Sorry?
just it's not, isn't it to do with your senses? If your sense is not happy,
Yeah, it is. That's part of
not
the
the soul is eternal. It's
yeah, it's to do with our internal senses. We
Mm.
have senses by which we interact with the world, but then but those senses have their subtle counterparts. So yeah, and there's a verse where's the forget where it is now, but it describes that above matter is the senses, forget this right, and above the senses is the intelligence, and above the intelligence is the soul. So yeah, it is. But again, it's not always, even as devotees, we can get caught out in the mechanisms of the body and the subtle body and really identify with, for instance, being in anxiety for one reason or another, and we really identify with that. Yeah. And what can get us out of that? Good old-fashioned Hare Krishna. Chanting Hare Krishna. Yeah, that can lift us out of that. Hearing about Krishna, chanting Krishna's holy name. Yesterday I mentioned a quote which I came across from the Mahabharata. I'll see if I can find it. Interesting to share. 1 second, give me 1 minute. Let me just go to. Oh, perhaps so. No, I'm not going to find it here. It's got different sections, but if I can just paraphrase it, this is from the Shanti Parva, but it's describing about anxiety, where it's explaining that one should not carry anxiety. One should learn to give it up. The easier said than done, I guess. But in other words, it's describing that what's the point where one may go through a specific situation, but one's duty is to be joyful. I mean, sometimes we're in anxiety about something that happened 10 years ago. That's some exaggerating a bit, or 5 years ago, and the mind has a tendency to go, the conditioned mind has a tendency like a fly, But it may not be, but that situation is gone and it's in the past. Why are we still carrying the anxiety? Again, it's easier said than done, and the only thing that's going to make us let go of that anxiety is the bliss of Krishna consciousness, is the happiness of Radha Krishna. Yeah, that's going to lift us out of that. Yeah, I mean, I experienced that sometimes I go through a difficult situation, say something's happened, and then I forget about it for like a month or a few weeks. Then, for no reason, my mind decides to get back into it. And it goes right back and it analyzes the so-called unfairness of the situation. And it's like, okay. So I guess it's due to attachment and conditioned nature. But for a self-realized soul, these things are like water for ducks back, so they're not going to, they're so absorbed in Krishna. For Krishna conscious devotee, these things are always very insignificant, Better go on a bit here. Any other questions or comments on this?
I'll tell you something. It's a little, I just heard from Jayadvaita Maharaj only a week ago.
Yeah, okay. So fresh off the bat.
You're talking about the mind and what comes up in your mind. He's telling about this man who's driving down the road in a motorway or something, and he has a puncture in his tire. So he gets out, he's got a new tire, but he hasn't got a jack to lift the car and that. So he decides that, okay, I will walk down the road and maybe I'll see a house and I'll knock and, oh, everybody's got, he's going on about this for 5 minutes, Maharaj.
Really? He's really expanding on it.
5 minutes, the same thing, 5 minutes. He says, well, everybody's got a car, they got to have a jack. He can only tell me, yes, you can have it, or he can tell me, no, you can't have it. And then Maharaj goes on and about, he can tell me you can have it, you can't have it, whatever. So the guy is like thinking like this, talking to himself and walking. 20 minutes, he gets to a house, and then he knocks and this guy comes out and says, okay, then if you don't want to give me your jack, doesn't matter. I will find somewhere else. I learned after 5 minutes, my head was going, why is Maharaj going on and on the same point? And at the end, I realized what the mind is doing, how the mind's talking. You get to the point and you think, okay, right, the mind's already made its mind up to say whatever it needs to be said. So I'm like, I need to learn from that. What I thought was, when the mind's speaking to you about, you got an issue or something and the mind's going on and on, how to switch it off. You just need to switch
Yeah,
it.
that's a very good example Marge gave, where you actually enter into a state of being in complete illusion.
Yeah.
Perhaps the man that, for instance, the man who he knocked, the door that he knocked, he probably had a jack in there.
Yeah, and he would have given it to you, but you had made your mind up so well that, okay, he's going to say no, and I'm going to answer him like this. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a very good example. Yeah. Where you actually disempower yourself.
Mhm.
You actually disempower yourself. Say you may get asked to do something, or may get asked to say you may get asked to give a class or something. And no, I can't do that, 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 I can't do that. No. And you get convinced, and you probably could do it. Krishna might well empower you to actually do it, but you convince yourself otherwise. Yeah. So in that sense, we can see the mind can be the enemy. I don't know. Okay, I've just found this quote, by the way. So why use? I was doing two things at once. I was listening to a very nice example from Jayadvaita Swami. I'm clicking through my notes from Mahabharata. Here's one interesting thing. He says there are two kinds of disease: physical and mental. Each springs from the other. None of them can be seen existing independently. Without doubt, mental diseases spring from physical ones. Similarly, physical diseases spring from mental ones. This is the truth. And here, the part which I was specifically thinking about: he that indulges in regrets on account of past physical and mental woes reaps woe from woe. It's an old saying for this. He repeats woe from woe. I'll just press the one. All right, anyway, there's a little quote there from Mahabharata. Do you get that? He that indulges in regrets on account of past physical and mental woes, he just gets more woe. So let me just go forward in it. Yeah, the next section. Sorry, I'll just. Anyway, Hare Krishna. Something to meditate upon. Right, so let's read another verse, shall we? Let's read another verse. Let's read text 17.
Shall I read?
Yes, please. Yeah, I saw your hand up there, Mother. Thank you.
Text 17. Avinasito tatviti yena sarvam idam tatam vinasham avyayasyasya na kaschit gatum arhati. That which pervades the entire body, you should know to be indestructible. No one is able to destroy that imperishable soul. Purport. This verse more clearly explains the real nature of the soul, which is spread all over the body. Anyone can understand what is spread all over the body. It is consciousness. Everyone is conscious of the pains and pleasures of the body, in part or as a whole. This spreading of consciousness is limited within one's own body. The pains and pleasures of one body are unknown to another. Therefore, each and every body is the embodiment of an individual soul, and the symptoms of the soul's presence is perceived as individual consciousness. This soul is described as 1/10,000th part of upper portion of the hair point in size. The Shvetapatra Upanishad 5.9 confirms this. Balagra sata bhagyasya sata kalpatisya cha bhago jiva sa vignaya sa kanayatya kalpate. When the upper point of a hair is divided into 100 parts, and again each of such parts is further divided into 100 parts, each such part is the measurement of the dimension of the spirit soul. Similarly, the same version is stated. Keshagra sata bhagyasya satam sa sardasatmakaha jiva sukshma swarupyam yam sankyato hechitkana. Sorry. There are innumerable particles of spirit atoms, which are measured as 1/10,000th of the upper portion of the hair. Therefore, the individual particle of spirit soul is a spiritual atom smaller than the material atoms, and such atoms are innumerable. This is very small spiritual spark is the basic principle of the material body, and the influence of such a spiritual spark is spread all over the body as the influence of the active principle of some medicine spreads throughout the body. This current of the spirit soul is felt all over the body as consciousness, and that is the proof of the presence of the soul. Any layman can understand that the material body minus consciousness is a dead body, and this consciousness cannot be revived in the body by any means of material administration. Therefore, consciousness is not due to any amount of material combination, but to the spirit soul. In the Mukunda Upanishad, the measurement of the atomic spirit soul is further explained. Isha nur atma chetasa vidyavo yasman prana panchata samvivesa pranaschittam sarvam utam pranam yasmin vishnudi vipati eshat atma. The soul is atomic in size and can be perceived by perfect intelligence. This atomic soul is floating in 5 kinds of air: prana, apana, vyana, samana, and udana. It is situated within the heart and spreads its influence all over the body of the embodied living entities. When the soul is purified from the contaminations of the 5 kinds of material air, its spiritual influence is exhibited. The Hatha Yoga system is meant for controlling the 5 kinds of air, encircling the pure soul by different kinds of sitting postures, not for any material profit, but for liberation of the minute soul from the entanglement of the material atmosphere. So the constitution of the atomic soul is admitted in all Vedic literatures and is also actually felt in the practical experience of any sane man. Only the insane man can think of this atomic soul as all-pervading Vishnu Tattva. The influence of the atomic soul can be spread all over a particular body, according to the Mundaka Upanishad. This atomic soul is situated in the heart of every living entity. And because the measurement of the atomic soul is beyond the power of appreciation of the material scientists, some of them assert foolishly that there is no soul. The individual atomic soul is definitely there in the heart along with the super soul, and thus all the energies of the bodily movements are emanating from this part of the body. The corpuscles, which carry the oxygen from the lungs, gather energy from the soul. When the soul passes away from this position, the activity of the blood generating fusion ceases. Medical science accepts the importance of the red corpuscles, but it cannot ascertain that the source of the energy is the soul. Medical science, however, does admit that the heart is the seat of all energies of the body. Such atomic particles of the spirit whole are compared to the sunshine molecules. In the sunshine, there are innumerable radiant molecules. Similarly, the fragmental parts of the Supreme Lord are atomic sparks of the rays of the Supreme Lord, called by the name Prabha, or superior energy. So whether one follows Vedic knowledge or modern science, one cannot deny the existence of the spirit soul in the body, and the science of the soul is explicitly described in the Bhagavad Gita by the personality of Godhead himself.
Hare Krishna. Wow, what a purple. Quite a long purple. I was going to stop in between, but anyway, we read the whole thing. Any observations or comments about this?
Explaining science.
Yeah, explaining real science.
Yeah.
Mm.
Science apparently explains that consciousness comes from matter, but no, we understand it as being different, and Krishna is confirming this. But the fact, if ever, like, we have our, I'm sure we will have our gadgets, isn't it? You will have your phones, we have our computers, you ever noticed that we have to plug them in to recharge them? Of course you've noticed that. They have yet to invent a phone which doesn't need to be charged, or they've yet to invent a car that doesn't need either fuel or electricity. Yeah. So why is the heart pumping? Why is it going boom, 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 boom? We don't have to charge ourselves up, do we?
Yeah, with the soul. If the soul goes, then it's not going to do anything.
Yeah. Why is it pumping? Or why is the heart pumping? It's because the soul is there and it's giving energy. So the soul is affecting the physical, although it's transcendental. It is so powerful that it is causing the heart to boom, 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 boom. And that heart, that's what spreads the blood throughout the body, as Prabhupada saying, the corpuscles, everything. And Prabhupada says here that even materialistic scientists, they admit that the where is it? You know, that the heart is the how did he describe it? Probably won't find it now. Yeah, anyway, they admit that the heart is the center of all. You know, if the heart stops working, then that's it. You ain't got much chance of living. Yeah. So I thought that was an interesting meditation. So that's why when the soul leaves, that's it. You know, the heart stops because the soul is not there to give it life. You know, yeah, to cause it to pump. You know. Yeah, here, medical science accepts the importance of red corpuscles, yeah, but it cannot ascertain that the source of the energy is the soul. Medical science, however, does admit that the heart is the seat of all energies of the body. Yeah. All right.
Mhm.
Should we read another verse or Anything else from here? This purple. Yeah, well, Prabhupada, generally this is one of Prabhupada's preaching strategies. In other words, he spares nothing in condemning the in the modern medical science, which foolishly conclude that there is no such thing as a soul. Yeah. And we know that because their study is completely just based on matter, they are in some illusion that at some point they're going to be able to keep men alive forever. Yeah. Just like a car, you actually can keep a car going forever if you change the parts which actually break down. Yeah. If the carburetor breaks down and you change it, if the wheels go flat, then you change it. Anything in the car you can change. Well, I guess it depends what car you have. Once it gets too old, then they don't do the parts anymore. But just like our phones, once they get too old, then you can't really do much with them. So they're under the illusion. They're trying, and some governments spend millions of pounds in some institutions trying to do this, desperately trying to keep men and women, trying to keep people alive forever. But no, sorry, once you have to go, you have to go. Yeah. Anyone heard of how to pronounce it? Cryogenics, if I've pronounced that right. Anyone heard that word?
Yes, that's
It's like the
freezing of the body.
freezing of the body. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. It's quite, for us, it's just amusing. It's just laughable. But then people take it deadly serious. And if you can't afford to have your body frozen, you can always just have your head frozen. At some point, they're in illusion that from the DNA of their head, they can create another exact body that you had. And of course, there's people who've got their body in cryogenic, they're frozen, just like in the freezer, you have frozen peas. So have the body frozen. Yeah. So for us, it's a joke. It's just laughable, Such a shame they spend millions of pounds. So what does it indicate? I'm trying to think, something just comes up. So what does it indicate of man's desire to live forever? What could you say it means then?
It's like our internal knowing that we're not supposed to die, but we don't know how to properly achieve it.
Yeah, that's it. Like deep down inside, the actual thought of non-existence or death is alien to the soul. So that's why there's a quest for immortality, and that's why it's attractive. It's an attractive proposal. Like, what's that? Was it Peter Pan that lived forever?
Because people want to enjoy themselves. They want to satisfy their senses.
Yeah. Forever and ever. Yeah, that's their quest for immortality, is that they want to, they don't want to, they actually don't realize that the fun fair is going to close at some point. Just like children, they can't appreciate that their fun fair is going to close. Yeah, and they want to try and enjoy forever. Like, I was quite fascinated by Peter Pan when I was young. It's a fictitious, I think it's a fictitious children's pantomime that he lives forever. But we do live forever, isn't it? The soul lives forever. But we can't appreciate that in this atmosphere with these temporary bodies. Yeah. There is a place where the inebrities of birth, old age, and disease do not exist. And that's a place for the soul proper. That's the proper place for the soul. But interesting, you could do a study on man's quest for immortality. Yeah. But here, Krishna consciousness gives one the real opportunity to obtain immortality. Yeah. But not in a way that generally people think, by freezing the body or replacing. Yeah, I saw some time ago, I saw a horrific picture of one very multi-millionaire in New York who had had 7 heart transplants or 10. You know,
Really?
every time he felt a bit weak, then he'd just pay for another heart. Of course, he died at some point, you know, but he looked like a horror story. His face looked so demented and so evil. At least that was my perception of someone who's, you know, who's so wants to keep on enjoying, that he's willing to have this intense operation to have his heart taken out and replaced by another heart, just so he can think he can, under the illusion that he can extend his years. I don't know if he was thinking he could live forever like that, but and he was known for being very very having no morals. He was known for being quite an unpleasant person and having no morals or virtues. You know, and I won't go into details, the type of things he would pay for as an old man. We should leave that. We won't go there. But, you know, but he died.
We see a lot of that here where I am.
America,
When you
yeah.
go for walks, yeah, in Los Angeles, lots of really, really old people, but their face looks so young and stretched, but
Yeah,
they
that's
can hardly walk. They're in a Zimmer frame, yet they're, you know, living in denial, total denial
yeah,
that they're old. They think they're young. You know, it's just,
yeah.
it's crazy. It's really crazy.
Yeah, it
It's
is
sad.
actually,
Sad.
it is actually crazy. It is actually insane when people go,
Yeah.
and it's actually yeah, and that's become prominent. I would say these what they call it, uplifts, or what they call it,
Facelifts
facelifting, or
and
bottom tucking. Resting.
yeah,
These
hair
things have come
transplants.
in over the last 20 years or so, perhaps more,
Crazy.
25 years. And you see, I mean, I'm sure we've seen pictures of some so-called film stars, and they look like freaks. Was a really sad case. I guess we're going off at 7 o'clock, but we should finish on a positive point. Let's just say the really sad case for Matt, well, I actually felt a bit of compassion, was Michael Jackson. You see the state of his physical features at the end of his life. It's just a horrifying story.
Really, yes.
Yeah, and he was someone whose whole you know, meditation was how beautiful he was, you know, how great he is. And he went to such an, he spent all these millions of pounds on trying to look, but it all went wrong. His eyes looked like, you know, anyway, we won't, you know.
He didn't want to look black. He didn't want to
Yeah,
have
that's another thing.
black
Yeah,
features. Yeah, and
Yeah.
He had
I think
vitiligo, actually. He had vitiligo, and back in
vitiligo.
that day, it was very rare. So he tried to just somehow shift into whiteness by magic. You know,
Yeah.
just
And his nose
backfired.
and yeah,
So I would say that's a classic story of modern, of the materialistic or the futility of material existence. Another one is the Titanic, where it was built to, you know, it would never sink, and on its first
yeah.
maiden voyage, glub glub glub, it sank. And here you have Michael Jackson, who wants to, you know, be Peter Pan and live forever. Anyway, yes.
We see that there seems to be here a problem with men who want to be women. I've seen so many men in dresses here and handbags and high heels, but they're
Yeah,
men.
that's the latest one. That's
Yeah.
this madness.
And it's called they're called hims and hers. You can't say him. It's really very weird, you know. Even in the forms, it's not Mr. or Mrs. It's him, hers, and maybes, and it's really, I don't know what's going on. It's very strange.
It's called the transgender issue.
Yes,
It's a
yes,
big thing, especially unfortunately amongst young people.
yeah,
They're just young and they go anyway.
yeah.
Anyway,
Sorry.
I watched a thing called What is a Woman? And this man, I don't know if you heard of it, but he's going against this transgender issue, and it's quite the documentary is quite good actually. Highlights the insanity of it. Anyway, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram. Thank Krishna for Krishna consciousness, the only hope in this mad world. All right. So let's stop there then. And tomorrow it should be okay. I think today is Wednesday, Thursday. I think it should be okay. There might be something that might happen.
We can have a day off on Friday.
Yeah. Friday. Okay. So thank you everyone for joining us, and we finished on text 17, and next week we're doing text 18. Okay. Thank you for a wonderful
I just say
discussion.
one more
Thank
thing.
you. Thank you,
We'll
Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Prabhu, Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna.
Best of you. Namo Namaha. Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.